anxietycenter.com.
Okay, so you're non-hyper. You have your hyper, how you feel hyperstimulated.
Yeah.
But then your non-hyperstimulated body.
Yeah.
It feels different. So how did you? That's the first time I've heard somebody mention that, because I'm experiencing that. It's like, oh, I don't have any symptoms. I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Well, there's two parts to that. One is sometimes we get so focused on the symptoms. That's what we dwell on. It's always top of mind, and we're working so hard to get rid of them. And then when we don't have them, we don't know what to do with that mental energy or how to live, because we're so used to the other. And then the other part of that is sometimes we focus so much on overcoming anxiety disorder. Once we're through it, we don't know what to do with our thoughts. Like, what do I do? Which is why in therapy, we usually, towards the end, help people identify their authenticness, their likes and dislikes, the things they want to pursue, so that as you're moving out of anxiety, you're starting to replace that thinking and energy with things you like to do. So it's more of a gradual transition.
Jim, can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Where is your biography on the website? I can't find it anymore.
It is under since we changed the websites last year, you'll find it under...
Yeah, I was looking, and I've been looking for it a couple of times. I can't find it.
If you go under therapy, about our team.
Go into where about?
Yeah, under the about
Steven.
link. Yeah, and then I'm right at the top of the list of our team members.
Okay, so in the content on the menu, there's an about.
Yep.
Okay, and then you're listed. You're on there. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be the first one that pops up. Yeah, you can scroll through everybody.
I don't know why I didn't even think to look there.
Yeah, we had to move things around, and we're trying to make things condensed. You have to sort of group things into categories, and that's what we did.
Yeah, and I was waiting for y'all to finish the grief chapter, and then there's another chapter.
Yeah.
I need that grief chapter right now. I really do.
Well, we're looking at doing things differently now. We're looking at bringing our therapists on to specialize in those areas, to have videos on those segments rather than text. As you mentioned earlier, we want to move more to video than we do text, because a lot of people are getting tired of reading, and I do too. I like videos, so it just takes.
I did talk to Stacy after my mom passed, and he helped me because I was having issues with believing my mom, was in heaven. Where was my mom? Because she was Jewish, and when my brother died, she accepted Jesus on his deathbed and everything, but my mom never talked about Jesus, or never. It was just like I never knew where my mother stood after that, and it's been 10 years since my brother died. So he really helped me. He did help me with that a lot.
Good.
Yeah, he would be good. He would be good for that chapter.
Yeah, and he was one of the people we've targeted for that.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a matter of getting there. It's just a lot of work we do each day.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any video. I mean, gosh, those hard days. Any video would be better
than reading it. Yes.
Oh yeah.
With our anxiety eyes.
With the anxiety, yes, and
like right
dizzy.
Now. The blurry and the weird. Yeah, looking through water and yeah.
It's funny because even listening as a podcast would be better than reading, and so we thought we would, start doing the narrations through all the chapters. But you know how long that takes. But right now, what's going on is real exciting. Is that the AI technology? You can actually record your voice in, and then it'll actually, when you push play, it'll actually read the text in your voice, which I've been experimenting with. It's actually quite good. So that's one way to quickly get that audio stuff up without having to spend a lot of time recording it and editing it and all that.
And y'all have that now on there?
We're just a little ways away. We're just doing some debugging on it, but it's actually quite good. It's
quite. Let us know.
Yes, yeah. We'll have links on the pages when you can click on the audio when it's ready to go.
That's awesome. That is so awesome.
Yeah. Of course, that's way faster than building videos for everything. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but audio, gosh, I remember those days. I mean, audio would be better than.
Yep.
I mean, even if you could only do audio.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the first step.
I'm sure going to miss you guys. Y'all not going to see you till January now.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I have, because the hip surgery is coming up. I wish I'd have known this months ago, but I have to get all my medical work all up to date, including dental, physicals.
Oh, yeah.
All that stuff. Yep. So I'm trying to get booked in because everybody's so backed up here. It just takes 3 to 4 weeks to get anything done. So my month of December. And
well, don't get too stressed out.
Oh no, I take it pretty easy. Medical stuff doesn't bug me. It's just the thing that bothers me the most is actually taking time away from the work that I love to do.
Oh,
yeah. But anyways, so I'll be busy for those months.
We sure appreciate you, don't we?
Well, I'm glad you got in, Jim, because it sounded like you're really suffering with this hip.
Yeah. Oh, it's been bad, and this really was an answer to prayer because this is such a miracle for us. We went to the appointment.
God is good.
Yeah, I went to the appointment with the surgeon that was recommended. He's really good. And when he says you're in really bad, he said to me, he says, well, try to walk. And I said, without my cane? He says, yeah. I took about 2 steps. He says, oh, never mind, come back. He looked at the X-ray. He says, yeah, your hip is really bad. He says, my problem is, he says, I can't get you in for 2 years. But he says, and of course, we both, my wife and I have been praying about this. I need to get in sooner because I got about 3 minutes worth of walk time, then I'm done. So the guy says, my colleague has this opening, and it just happened. Like it just literally happened when we were there, and there was a mix-up with the booking nurse and the guy's schedule where he had these openings. So again, that's God's providence looking. Because I couldn't make 2 years. It's just no way.
No, my God.
Yeah.
That's
so
great.
what day are you having that surgery?
Well, it's all contingent. I have some oral surgery coming up that has to be done first, and that has to be completely healed. And so we're just waiting.
Yeah, because that infection will go to that joint.
Yep. So that also has to be healed. So we're just waiting on. I have that scheduled for the beginning of December. So I just have to wait to make sure everything's done. And the booking nurse said, well, we're going to schedule you in for the middle part of January, but we'll confirm it once you're done with your surgery. So that's where things are at. So I appreciate your thoughts and your prayers. Now, Ellie, you haven't said anything. Did you have a question for us?
Yeah, I was looking for a space to interject there, but I didn't want to interrupt.
Oh, you've been so patient. And I'll stay here. We'll talk with your question too.
Oh, thank you. But well, it's my first time here, so I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Ali. I'm from Toronto, or the Greater Toronto area. And
welcome.
Thank you. My Skype I was having some issues with it, and then I was also at work, so I was kind of gone for like the first 2 hours. So now it's like towards the end, so I apologize that like I'm kind of coming in here at the end.
Not a problem at all.
I don't know if we have time to get into my whole situation because I think we're closing off here for the year actually, right?
Well, let's go. We can go. I wanted to make sure I answered everybody's questions before we wrap for this year.
Okay, great. So, I mean, I'll give you like a quick rundown, I guess. I mean, so about like in March-ish, I kind of had like my hyperstimulation begin pretty much. Like I'm just going to pull over because it's really loud. I'm driving on the highway. But so back in like March, like when I kind of had my run-in with all this stuff, I guess you could say like the glass got full, right? But I've always had like these anxious tendencies. Now that I realize it, but I mean, and what actually triggered it for me was like just a period of just disrupted sleep for like a long time, and like college stress, supplements to kind of like help reduce the damage that I was doing.
Sorry, Ellie, sorry, you just cut out there for a minute.
Oh, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So long story short, I took the supplement. Had like an adverse reaction to it, and that just made my hyperstimulation just kick into overdrive.
I'm sorry. I didn't get the first part of that. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm just actually gonna pull over here so that I can talk easier. So I hope that.
Okay, sure.
Minutes,
yeah.
But yeah, basically, I became hyperstimulated about in March, and then I was recovering really well. Like after I found your website, which was just a huge blessing. Mm-hmm. Somebody told me about it. And it just put everything like into order for me, and it made so much sense to me. And so through like the self-help information on your website and the members area for the first about 4 or 5 months, like I was completely recovering like really quickly. Like I pretty much went from like an 8 in hyperstimulation, I would say, to down to like I was on track to just completely be cured, I guess you could say.
Nice.
But then about like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I kind of had like a return to anxious behavior, and then like I really started to consider level 2 recovery, like with a therapist, and I'm yet to reach out to one. So like I was thinking about reaching out to Stacy. I got his appointment list.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't sure if I was gonna go with Stacy or Chris, and like I was trying to get one with Chris, but haven't got anything any response yet. But I think I'm gonna do one with Stacy this week. My first call with him.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, anyways, like, so I guess a question like that I would have is basically, this is not the most important thing for me, but it's immediate, so I guess I'll ask it. And you probably get asked this quite a bit on the Skype calls, but I was having like quite a bit of anxiety before getting on the call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask about that and like how to, I guess, address it.
Yeah, that's common. I mean, especially with the first call, because we're building rapport and it's new and you're talking to people and it's going to be broadcast on YouTube. And so I understand that. It just gets easier as time goes on. Typically, it also indicates a sensitivity to self-consciousness, usually, self-esteem issues, people pleasing and that. So, but those are all common for anxious people. In fact, years ago, they used to think anxiety disorder was a interpersonal relationship problem because of how we learn to relate to others in such a kind of an anxious way. But it's very common. It'll go as you get used to it.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's another thing too, is like when it comes to deep relaxation, I've been having an issue with it. I don't know if it's just me or something, but basically whenever I do it, like even before I've noticed this, it's kind of basically like meditation, right? I used to meditate quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I would meditate or deeply relax, I would just be depressed afterwards. And it would last for quite a bit. And so I found that it's not really the best strategy for me. I don't know, like, if you've heard that before, but that's kind of what happens. So basically the strategy that I use is just laying down and just letting my mind wander instead of actually actively trying to relax, because it produces that effect for me.
Mm-hmm. As long as you're getting because you want to get two effects. You want to get the body to be calmer, so heart rate goes down, blood pressure goes down, those kind of things. So that's part two, is that your mind isn't dwelling on anything anxious. So the value of doing like a regimented deep relaxation routine is that we control the mind. We learn to control our thoughts, control our mind. And that's really key for containment, because that's what we have to do. So there's two values: deep relaxation of the body, and then, of course, learning to control the mind. If you're just letting your mind wander, that's not really controlling it. So it's not going to benefit you from a containment perspective. But if you are getting, rest value by doing that, at least you're getting part of that. It would be better if you could do. Now, when you say meditation, I'm not talking about, some Oriental meditation. I'm just talking about focusing the mind on peaceful things so that the body can relax. That's all I'm saying.
Right. So
Yeah.
I don't know why, but like whenever I get into that kind of that zone, that kind of state where I'm sitting there and just focusing, like kind of on something that I'm thinking about,
Mm-hmm.
like it'll always just have that effect for me now. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, be curious to find out why you're feeling depressed after. I mean, there could be a physiological reason, such as, maybe you're the kind of person that likes to be on the go and enjoys the energy of it, and so not having that energy, being more relaxed, can make you feel more down. Or it could be related to something psychological, maybe feeling more relaxed and calmer, isn't exciting for you. We'd have to find out why that's the case. It shouldn't cause a physiological depression, so to speak. So it's probably more of the other. Can I ask your age range? Are you 20s, 30s, 40s?
Yeah, I'm 20s, 23.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I do think it's a physiological thing. Because I've been working with a psychiatrist as well, and I've had a few like brain injuries, or I guess you could say, like when I was younger.
Okay.
Which is something that that I never really considered. But I think that could be, or it is basically the reason why. And it feels like there's a sensation as well, like after I meditate or just deeply relax. Like even if I don't meditate per se, but if I follow like a script on YouTube or something, like a deep relaxation type of thing where you just follow along,
Yeah.
like it'll still like it'll have like that feeling like in my head where it's kind of just I don't know how to describe it, but it'll feel kind of like numb-ish, and like I'll just feel depressed afterwards. So yeah, I guess I wanted to ask if anybody else has experienced that or if you heard that before.
Yeah,
But,
people will experience, because deep relaxation isn't for everybody, and there's reasons why. Everyone has their own reasons. Feeling depressed and low after is a common one. Sometimes people will feel so energized they can't stand it is another one. There's various things. Now, it would be real important to find out the extent of the brain damage and if it is affecting you. Problems with psychiatrists is sometimes they will say things that just aren't appropriate, and they'll lead us to believe things that just actually aren't true. I've seen this lots of times, so it might be helpful to go to like a someone else rather than a psychiatrist for an assessment. I don't know if you've done that, but you seem cognitive together. Does the psychiatrist say that your brain deficits are causing other issues in your life, or do you
well,
know?
he just said that I have like a mood disorder, pretty much.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't buy into that personally, I'm afraid. The minute I hear those kind of things, my red flags go up. To me, it sounds
Yeah.
like To me, it sounds like there's something else going on. I wouldn't call it physiological. There would be other things that are going on that would probably be easily identified, especially with Stacy. He's really good. I'm sure he'll get to the bottom of that pretty quick. Now, regarding the relaxed state, if you find something relaxing, great, because it's if your body symptomatic, and when you say your anxious behavior has creeped up, are you talking about symptoms, or are you talking about you're noticing you're being more anxious?
Yeah, no. So what happened was I was pretty much, after I figured out what was going on and I reduced a lot of the stress and the hyperstimulation. Like I was having very little stress for a long time, and I was just getting my sleep back on track for about like 4 or 5 months, and my hyperstimulation was almost gone. It was pretty much like nearing its end, with just a few things remaining. But then I kind of wanted to adjust my sleep schedule a bit more so that I would sleep a bit earlier and wake up kind of earlier. And then and then that night that I tried to adjust my sleep schedule, I started to just worry. I don't know why, but I was thinking like, what if I don't know if I was actively thinking this, but this is like the threat that I've kind of identified is like, what if I start worrying, or what if I start having anxiety and then I can't sleep for some reason? It's so stupid now that I think about it. And like it still happens though at night. And so after about like a week or two of that, my sleep got worse, and then and then I started to have hyperstimulation come back up, and then it was like a big kind of a moral thing, like I guess what you could say like a hit to my motivation. And that's what happened. And then today as well, like it's weird because when I was resting and reducing stress a lot, then I would start to feel like the stress responses, whenever they would come, I'd feel it like more pronounced, right? And then as I kept having them, like I stopped feeling it. And so I've heard you say that as well before, that like you can stress yourself out without even realizing it. And I guess I wanted to ask that as well, is like, if you keep triggering stress responses, then the body will kind of like mute it, right? It'll like make it so that you're not feeling it anymore. And I guess my theory for that is like inflammation, because I was having these like symptoms of like inflammation in my body, like just feeling stuffy and like and stuff like that. So I wanted to ask about that.
Gotcha, sure. Yeah, chronic stress. Well, all of those things are true. We can chronically stress the body so much that the stress response becomes muted, which means the body doesn't react to it. It just becomes used. It doesn't react. We don't get the same reaction. And of course, adrenaline is supposed to increase the inflammation response as a survival mechanism. But when we're chronically stressed, causing cortisol to increase will then actually causes a decrease in inflammation suppression, which increases inflammation. So let me just repeat that to probably sound right. When we have the initial stress response and adrenaline is triggered, it increases the inflammatory response, which suppresses inflammation. When we're chronically stressed, the inflammation response is suppressed, which allows inflammation to grow. We're not getting the same suppression. So chronic stress or chronic inflammation problems is a common indication of chronic stress. So those will fit together. What you said about sleep disruption is also common. When our sleep has been disrupted and we feel crappy and we don't have energy, yet we want to go and we have to work, we push ourselves, it's easy for us to now start worrying about not sleeping. So once sleep comes back on track, where do you think the mind's going to go? Gee, what if I don't start sleeping anymore? What if my anxiety starts disrupting my sleep? Of course, we just then trigger another fear response. Well, that triggers the stimulants, which keeps sleep disrupted. So we get into that. So all of those things make sense. The increase in anxiety symptoms, hyperstimulation. Also, the depression after deep relaxation sounds, again, more like your physiological response, and probably some other things going on there. All those can be reversed, and Stacey can help you do that. I think in the short term, to get your sleep back on track, I don't know if you've read Chapter 18 yet, but we're great big proponents of just focusing on rest, not sleep, just rest. Because if we can, everybody can rest. And as we rest, the body's arousal level comes down, allowing sleep to kick in again. So it gets easier for our sleep to come back when we just focus on rest rather than focusing on trying to sleep. So that's one way you can eliminate that, fear of, gee, what if I, worry so much or my anxiety comes up that I can't sleep? We just say, well, it's not about sleep. My job is just to rest, and I can do that. That eliminates the threat.
Yeah. It's a bit complicated too, because my confidence in being able to relax and rest has kind of decreased as well, because the depression thing, when I try to deeply relax, then I start to feel worse afterwards. So like when I try to contain with saying like, it's no worries if I get anxiety, I can just relax. It's kind of like, wait, I can't really relax, because if I try to deeply relax, then I have this effect that happens. So it's kind of like complicated in that manner, right? So,
and that's very common. I don't know if you know that. In fact, I experienced that years ago when I was dealing with the same thing. Back in those days, is my thought process went, well, all right, so I just have to rest. Yeah, but what if I can't rest? Oh, gee, if I can't rest, then I can't balance my sleep, and then I can't sleep, and oh my gosh, and you start running down that fear. And then, how I got out of this by realizing, well, wait a minute, that's just anxious thinking. I don't have to think that way. I'm in charge of my thinking. I'm not going to scare myself that way. Sure, of course I can rest. I can rest all the time. I rest watching TV. I don't have to sleep. I can do all these other things. After a while, that kind of extinguished that fear, and then rest just became right back. So it's common to kind of go in those circles. We do see that.
Yeah.
But the way out is to recognize this is all anxiety. Anxiety's behavior. I can contain my behavior. I'm in charge. So all the other stuff is a non-threat. So, but again, working with a therapist will be able to drill down to some of these threats and core fears and help you work through those so that these issues don't pop up.
Yeah, the main thing I wanted to get to real quickly was like I'm having this kind of stress response that's always like being triggered randomly throughout the day. It's not random, but it feels like it. It's kind of like whenever I've noticed that it happens whenever I'm thinking about something in the future, or like something that excites me. And so like there's this, it's very similar when I get excited versus when I feel anxious. So, like whenever I think about something in the future that excites me, or even something that like scares me, like that's obvious, right? But even when I think about something that's just kind of like I'm gonna do in the future, even if it's not that far away, if it's like in 10 minutes or if it's like tomorrow or something I want to do, then like I'll just have like this feeling of like my heart skipping a beat, It's really strange, and it keeps happening. Like it happens like more than the average person, I would say, because part of it is kind of normal. It's like you feel kind of excited, but it's gotten to a point where like just normal things that I think about I'm going to do in the future, like it kind of has that like that mini stress response of like the heart skipping a beat kind of feeling, So I've been trying to, like, I wanted to work through that with the therapist, but I guess I wanted to ask you really quickly, like what would you say about that?
Yeah, that's common too, especially when the body is hyperstimulated, even to a small degree, because even things that are in the future that we really like trigger stress responses. And if the body is already stressed to a certain degree, where we're going to get a magnified, response of that. And there's also behavioral aspects to it too. We want to drill down and find out what the belief systems are, why we respond to those anticipatory events, in kind of more of an anxious way. So there's a lot to it, but this is all basic anxiety stuff that we talk with all the time. So it's nothing unusual here.
Okay, so you would say that working with a therapist would just pretty much be the best option to get through all this?
I think it's the only option because, and why I say that is because we can't figure it out for ourselves, because if we did, we wouldn't be struggling with anxiety. So we need someone to come along and help point out some of these things so that we become aware of them, and also provide, tools and strategies to overcome them. That's, the therapist has a lot of value, and the therapist also can support us as we make these behavioral changes, because it's not like we say, okay, good, I've got this, I'm going to do this, and then tomorrow we're good. It takes time to work through the old behaviors, refute some of the old stuff, steady ourselves as we use new behaviors. So it's a process of education, support, and encouragement as the person makes all these changes.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But everything you
All right.
told me, I've heard lots of times. Nothing here is unusual. It is all anxiety based. Yeah. And
this one might be unusual though, because this is the last thing I'll ask you is like certain foods, right, that make my hyperstimulation, it actually changes my symptoms, and it's like the same change every time. And so it's like whenever I eat meat, it's like I get this like a certain set of symptoms, and it makes it just worse in general. And I've experimented with like different kinds of like quality meat, like the best quality meat that I can find, and it still happens for some reason, even with like a very small amount.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to ask you about that. Like, I don't know if I don't think that's normal, or if it is, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, we can develop food sensitivities when the body's hyperstimulated. That's one thing. We see that quite often. Or other things, we could have a food sensitivity overall. I'll give you an example. My wife struggled with lots of digestive issues, for years when she worked in the medical community, and just could never get it under control. So when we met and talked about anxiety, she said, well, what's anxiety? We talked about hyperstimulation. She worked on her hyperstimulation, got her hyperstimulation down, but was still having some stomach distress. And it was serious. We spent numerous trips to the hospital trying to figure it out. She went to geneticists and specialists, and everybody couldn't figure it out what was going on and why she would trigger on certain foods and trigger badly. So we ended up connecting with Liliana Tosic, who was our natural nutritional therapist. And she worked with Marilyn, my wife, to assess the diet, food combining, timing, and all these kind of things. And she brought it down to recognizing that while my wife wasn't gluten intolerant, that none of the tests picked up, and none of the tests picked up gluten sensitivity, she did. Her body was responsive to it. So certain things she can eat and certain things she can't. And so you might want to spend some time at some point connecting with a nutritionist to weed out maybe if there is a real food sensitivity. But what I'd suggest first, work with the therapist, help you get your hyperstimulation down and see how your body responds. And if you're finding that your body's nice and calm and you're not symptomatic, but you're still having triggers caused by food you eat, then would be a good time to look at a nutritionist to figure out which one it is and why. Because it could be meat additives, right? Could be some of the tenderizing they use in the place you're buying. Who knows? Could be anything. But that would be the course of action I'd suggest, just to make sure that anxiety and stress wasn't a part of the issue.
Right, because I've pretty much given up eating meat at this point, and I don't think it's because it's hard to kind of supplement a lot of the nutrients that you get from meat. So the thing is, like, after I've stopped eating the meat, a lot of the symptoms went away, and like they're particularly concerning for me because I had this fear, like when my hyperstimulation was really bad, of like losing my mind and like developing like a serious mental condition.
Yeah.
And when I eat meat, it's mainly like psychological symptoms that are like very like I'll just feel really off and mentally, and so I don't know, it's kind of a trade-off that I made where like I'll just stop eating meat for some time until the hyperstimulation went away. And it's already been like a month since I quit meat, and now it's kind of like I feel like the nutrients and stuff that I'm not getting from just other food is starting to catch up to me. So now I'm not sure if I should start to eat it again, but then that would kind of like, I don't know, like I think I've just given it up for some time. So
I would suspect that it's not necessarily a food sensitivity just because of what you described. It could be the way your body's reacting. Now, do you eat nuts?
Yeah.
And that doesn't bother you?
No, it doesn't.
Okay. Because sometimes, like a high protein food will take longer to digest, and sometimes that can affect how we
Yeah, no,
feel
I
and think.
experiment. I don't think it's the protein.
Okay. Yeah, well, again, probably going after hyperstimulation first. If you can supplement your diet for the short term with proteins, um, and maybe some other nutrients to supplement that for the short term, so that's not a factor. Get your hyperstimulation down, and then maybe reintroduce and see if that's the cause. And if it is, then looking at nutritionists to find out ways that you can still get those nutrients, but not by eating meat.
Right. Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So I think the best course of action is just to connect with Stacy or whoever else. I
Yeah.
mean, who would you recommend I connect with out of all the therapists on the website?
Well, Stacy's one of our best. He trains other therapists, so he's really, really good. And he does have some openings now, so it might be a good time to connect with him. A lot of clients have really good success with him. We highly respect his work. A lot of other therapists are very good as well at their own things, depending on the things. But if you do have an option, to select someone right now, I think we only have Stacy, and I think Vince is open, or Yuhan's open. Yeah, Stacy would be my choice just because of what you're dealing with, because he's also dealt with digestive things.
Mm.
Yeah, so he'd be a good connection. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Okay. Thanks so much, Jim. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And yeah, next time we have a Skype discussion early next year, I'd be curious to get an update to see how things are going. Yeah. Appreciate that.
For sure. What's the schedule like on these Skype calls?
We used to have them once every 1 or 2 months, but just because I'm going into hip surgery and some other stuff and medical things, the next couple of months are going to be taken up with that. So probably the next Skype group will be, before I say that, I have my hip surgery in January, so looking at probably 30 days of rehab before I can actually sit in a chair. So probably not now until next February. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, may God make it easy for you, man.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah. So if you can back then, let's connect again and see how things are going.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And one more thing was just this concern that I had about my brain damage, right? Was because it was because of that stuff, like the injuries that I had as a child.
Yeah.
But on top of that was during my adolescence, I kind of had a turbulent time, and I was using marijuana during my adolescence, which is, now that I look back on it, I really, really regret it. And I also used I didn't really drink at all. I did here and there, not much, and not really nicotine or cigarettes.
Yeah.
But then in 2019, December, I did LSD once, and then after that, I quit everything and completely sober for about 3 years now. And I turned back to God and everything, and it was a really scary experience, but it brought me back to God, which was the best thing that could ever happen to me.
Good for you.
But yeah, but because of those things, now I'm concerned about there's a hyperstimulation aspect, but then there's also the healing my brain aspect, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I was thinking about when it comes to the meditation and the eating the meat, because it kind of has the similar effect. When I eat meat, I feel very depressed afterwards, and then there's also when I meditate, that also causes depression and stuff like that. That's why I was thinking it might be a physiological reason. And the psychiatrist that I work with, he's pretty good. He recommended that I take fish oil to kind of help heal my brain with omega-3s and stuff.
Okay.
And he recommended lamotrigine, which is a mood stabilizer, and it kind of works with the fish oil to repair the brain, he was saying. And he gave me Seroquel for sleep, but I've used Seroquel here and there, if I have a really bad night and I just need to get the rest, and it works really well for me without very many side effects. So that's just a really good, really big blessing from God, I would say. So I just wanted to add that in there, is because I do think there's some precedence for the diagnosis of having some kind of a imbalance in the brain. I don't know what you think about now that you have this context.
Yeah, I would completely disagree.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. And why is because psychiatrists come from a medical bias background. They're going to look at things from a brain chemical, biological thing, and now even genetic thing. Well, those theories were debunked 10 years ago. They never were true. And we have a psychiatrist friend, and we had a long conversation with him about anxiety. And he says, and my best advice for you is don't send anybody with anxiety to a psychiatrist. and we just see the same thing over and over and over again, is where they give people bad information. We have a lot of those articles on the public pages about, the genetic predisposition, the chemical imbalance, and brain problems, and so on and so forth. Now, people do have brain injuries from certain things, but they generally don't affect us in a way that is a behavioral that's so obvious, like anxiety. I mean, just from talking a little bit, you have anxiety. Yeah, you have behaviors. Yeah, you do. That's without saying. And so those are the things that go after. Typically, people who have brain injuries, they have physical deficits that are obvious. And they're, for example, did he do a brain scan?
Well, we discussed that, but he was saying that what is shown on like an MRI would not be useful. But there's like Amen Clinic, which is in America, and like it's a consideration, but it costs like $5,000 to $10,000 and stuff. And then there's another place in Huntsville. I'm not sure if you heard of it. It's called BrainWorks, I think.
In fact, one of our therapists used to work there.
Oh wow. Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly what they do, but like I was just up at Algonquin with the family, and like we just drove by it and I saw it, and then I looked it up afterwards. So I've been thinking about that as well at some point in the future. So, but I agree that anxiety is like a behaviorally like based a thing, right? But I was thinking that some of the hyperstimulation symptoms that I'm experiencing are because of the imbalances or damage from before that would be different from other people's experience.
So what did you have an accident? Like what happened to cause brain damage when you were young?
So there's a few things when I was a kid. Like one was so young that I can't remember, but I think I rolled off the bed or something and I hit my nose really hard and I had to go to the hospital and something like that. But and then there was another one when I was in grade 3, so I was probably like 7 or something.
Yeah.
But I had like a go-karting accident that was like pretty severe.
Yeah.
Wasn't hospitalized, but for the next 2 weeks I was like really just completely like sore and like it had a really big effect on me. And so there's another one too, I don't remember. I had like, I got hit in the face with like a bat. Like I was standing behind someone playing baseball, and they swung the bat. I was like probably like 5 or younger at that time. So there's a couple, but so those are the injuries. And then plus with the kind of substance use during my developing years, during my teenage years, I think that there's some kind of damage that has happened that I need to like kind of heal, because before I had the hyperstimulation, I was still having some symptoms of like just not being able to focus at all. Like the anxious behaviors were also there. Depression, I don't know how much that was there. That was mainly when I was still using the substances and like before the pre-LSD stuff. But then after all that, everything, when I got sober, I kind of still had the depression, but it was kind of hard to say. But yeah, I mean, I say all this that like, that's why I was really concerned about like having like a real like mental problem from the stress and the hyperstimulation, like becoming schizophrenic or something. Because a lot of people, like when they become schizophrenic, it's one of the triggers could be because of like a increase of stress or like lack of sleep. So that's why I was thinking like, like what do you think about that? Like people who develop like a serious mental condition, like I think that sleep plays a big role in that, right? Like for people who have like an onset, like for a schizophrenic, for example, like
So let me just answer that question in 1 minute. So when your doctor said that he thought you had brain damage, what did he say resulted? Did he say that it was a chemical change in the brain or something or other?
He said, I'm trying to think about it. He was saying that the temporal lobe in my brain is overactive because like the brain rests on the temporal lobe. And so he was saying that there's, I think he didn't say this, but like he was kind of saying like there's like electrical activity that goes on in the brain. And basically he was saying that lamotrigine would kind of calm it down and balance it. And I guess he didn't really say anything about chemical imbalances, but he was saying that there is something that's gone biologically wrong.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Personally, I would discount all of that. It's unfortunate. Unfortunate they do stuff like that. You'd think in this day and age they would stop doing that, especially since that the chemical and biological problems in the brain have been so discounted for mental health issues. I'm surprised he's still saying those kind of things because it's been so outdated. So I would discount all of that. If you've had some bangs in the head and you haven't been rushed to the hospital and you had your skull open to relieve pressure, then those, bumps and bangs in the head growing up are pretty common. A lot of people have even the concussions, especially with sports people, they don't have brain deficits because of the concussion that causes anxiety. Anxiety is caused by learned behavior, and so we can address all of that, and that learned behavior then stresses the body, and that stress presents symptoms, and that sounds exactly what's going on with you. So I'd address it from an anxiety standpoint. Even with the drug use, while that person can have some problems because of drug use, they're usually from long-term extensive drug problems. While some people can have an immediate reaction, they usually don't. Marijuana is only associated with significant mental health problems with chronic long-term use, which you don't have. So I would rule those out as options.
Yeah.
It's really anxiety is what I would say is going on. Yeah.
Okay, because so would you say that it's not just anxiety, it's anxiety, but there's also the possibility of like some type of imbalance? Because that's what I was kind of getting at. Is like I know that anxiety for sure is just it's mainly like where it could be totally just a behavioral issue, but then there could be for me like an aspect of this thing as well. Like if I was to completely get rid of all my anxiety and my hyperstimulation and be healed and like have no anxious behaviors, then would there still be a possibility of the damage from before that would be there that would still affect me somehow, like mentally or physically or otherwise?
Yeah, I would say no. I'd say there's zero chance of that. And
oh, really?
Yeah, they say chemical imbalance because, that's been debunked back in 2011. That theory never was true. It was discarded officially in 2011, and anybody who's up to date on the research would never say those kind of things. But the problem is, a lot of psychiatrists don't ever check the new research, or they like their old model because they can prescribe. That's the sad part. So you can just, take that and just eliminate all that stuff. Now, from a chemical imbalance, well, there is, but that doesn't cause the anxiety. What's going on is stress changes the relationship between GABA, which is the calming neurotransmitter, and glutamate, which is the excitatory transmitter. And when our stress is up, the GABA goes down and glutamate goes up. So there is an imbalance, but that's stress caused. It's not causing our behavior. That's the difference. Yeah. Now we can reverse all of that by going after our behaviors, doing deep relaxation to restore the body's natural homeostatic balance, all those things. But the imbalance is caused by stress. That imbalance doesn't cause us to develop anxious behavior. It's anxious behavior stresses the body, which causes that imbalance, which we converse through, reducing stress and all the others, and then dealing with our anxious behavior, so we're not continually triggering the body. And just from talking with you, I know you have some anxious behavior. Yeah,
for sure. So would you recommend I continue with the deep relaxation, even though I have that issue and stuff?
Well, I would encourage you to do what you find relaxing until you talk with Stacy, because I think it's important to bring your awareness to why you're feeling depressed, so that when it does show up, you're not concerned about it. Just like anxiety, depression is not something we have to fear. It's often caused by stress too, and it's also often caused by a lot of the underlying factors that contribute to anxiety. So no matter what it is, we can work our way through any of those. That's the good news. We don't have to fear the labels because they really don't mean much other than putting a name on something we're experiencing. Sound okay?
So so when it comes to like the imbalances and stuff, what about so I mean, I don't know. I just wanted to ask, like when it comes to the research, like where can I find this? Like where can I look at this? Because are you saying that like there's no imbalances in mental health issues overall, or just with anxiety?
There's no mental health in almost all mental disorders. Now there are biological problems in some mental disorders. Schizophrenia is one, but schizophrenia can also be a behavioral thing. It just depends on the source of it. There's something called fetal alcohol syndrome, where the mother was pregnant and drinking heavy alcohol use while the fetus was developing, so certain parts of the brain don't develop. So there's a real physiological cause. But for most mental health issues like anxiety, depression, even personality disorder, borderline, all of those, they're all behaviorally based. And if a person is willing to work on the behaviors, you can eliminate them all. Yeah.
Okay.
We have therapists who work with schizophrenics, have had great success with this cognitive therapy. One was completely eliminated fairly quickly. One was eliminated through prayer, by the way, too. So there's lots of different ways that a person can manage these things. We don't have to be afraid of them. They're not life sentences.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So regarding the research, if you go to our main homepage at our website and then scroll down to under research, statistics, and news, there's a link there. We have all the articles there about that. There's two specific on the chemical imbalance theory that talks about Dr. Ronald Pies, who's a well-known psychiatrist and publisher of information. He has tried to debunk that notion twice. If you notice that even pharmaceutical companies do not say chemical imbalance anymore because they got caught knowing that it wasn't true. So there's just lots of ways to disprove it. We've got research from Canadian research that shows that there is no link to mental health disorders to a genetic predisposition. There's just none. There's just so much research to dispute the common theories that were circulating. It's just not something you have to worry about.
Wow. So that's not just for anxiety then. That's for pretty much all mental health disorders.
Yeah, pretty much all. Not all. There's still a few, but they're very, very small.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm on the home page, but where should I look again?
Under the link that says, anxiety. Just if you roll over that, you'll see a bunch of pop-ups there. And then under the support category, you'll see research, news, stats.
Statistics, myths, research news.
Yeah, click on the research news.
Okay.
And then you'll see them categorized by date. And you can just type in chemical imbalance as a search thing. It lets them see where there's the last one that Ronald Pies tried to get rid of that notion. It's just because when people learn about this chemical imbalance thing, it never was true. Never was true. But because the pharmaceutical marketing, everybody bought into it. So when you go to a psychiatrist, because they have a biological bias, they're going to say, well, you have an imbalance that needs to be fixed by these medications. The truth is medications don't fix any imbalance because there's no imbalance. We used to fight against this for years because my wife is in psych nursing. And when she went through the course of training about medications, almost all psychotropic medications said mechanism unknown, which meant they didn't know what it was doing. So they give it to people. If they get an effect, they say, well, that person's got a calming effect, so it must be calming. We don't know how it works. So then the pharmaceutical companies came up with this brilliant marketing strategy. Oh, it's a chemical imbalance that needs to be fixed. Never was true. So anyways, for years and years, everybody's been trying to battle this who are in the know. And it's just a pesky theory that should never have occurred, but still does for a lot of people who want to use it to prescribe. Let me just look down to where that last article we did here. There's one in February 23, 2021 that says genes don't predict mental illness. That'll tell you that there is no predisposition, genetic predisposition. Where's the other one here? We just did an update to that. Scrolling down. The thing with the psychotropic medications, they do create physical dependence, which the pharmaceutical companies said didn't. Now it's well known that they do. There's another one, article in 2019, December, that says genes have little to do with medical and mental health outcomes. It's another research that disproves the genetic thing. Where is the article on Ronald Pies? Let me just go back to a different category. Hang on 1 second. I know I just looked at that one the other day.
So when it comes to hyperstimulation, for example, like depression is like a symptom of hyperstimulation, one that like I'm experiencing, right?
Very
So
common. Yeah, it's chronic stress really is a contributor to depression. Yeah, because again, it mutes the body's stress response effect, which makes everybody feel kind of not energetic, low mood, all those kind of things.
right. So if there's an imbalance that occurs because of hyperstimulation, let's say, then what about if somebody had that imbalance occur but without hyperstimulation? Is that possible?
No, because you need chronic stress to deplete and change the balance between the neurotransmitters.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Because yeah.
The other article, sorry, it's located in a different spot. If you go under the same anxiety menu option and click on articles, and once you're on the anxiety articles page,
right, yeah,
scroll down to, it'll say, you'll have a category at the top that says must reads, and then there's another one below that. It says, actually quite a ways down. It says Ronald W. Pies puts another nail in the chemical imbalance theory coffin. If you click on that link, it'll tell you what this head of psychiatry has tried to tell people for years about this. That's a good article. Yeah, because it links to his older article too. And we have a long article on the falseness of the chemical imbalance theory because we had to battle that for years.
I thought it was just for anxiety though, but like I wasn't thinking that it's for other things, or that it couldn't be mixed with like hyperstimulation.
Oh no, they use it for everything. If you're depressed, if you're, of course, they came up with another category, bipolar. If they just went through the whole thing. It's all caused by chemical imbalance, they said, which is completely false.
Oh, I thought that the chemical imbalance theory was false just for anxiety.
No, it's false.
I thought it could be true for other illnesses.
False for everything. In fact, people who are taking antidepressants to, quote, correct their imbalance often got worse. And the reason is because they didn't know if it's too low of serotonin in the brain or too much. So, and that's the thing. If you don't take the perfect amount, you're going to have symptoms on both sides of that. But you don't need to take anything because the body naturally produces serotonin, and nobody knows what the correct balance is because neurotransmitters are changing in the brain all the time. Mm. So there is no, perfect level of neurotransmitters and they all affect each other. Like there's more than one neurotransmitter in the brain synapse. There's a bunch of them, and they all interact, and they're going to change based on what the person's doing, if the person's relaxing, if the person is being excited. So they have no idea what's going on in there, but they created a great marketing tool that worked for them. They sold billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of antidepressants based on this marketing scheme.
Wow. Yeah, because I was thinking that like when I meet or did like deep relaxation and had these effects afterwards, I was thinking for sure that it's some sort of imbalance that I had that is accentuated by the hyperstimulation, but maybe it's just complete hyperstimulation is what you're saying, right?
It is, yeah. And depending on where you are in your recovery cycle, like if your body's close to normal, stimulation rather than hyperstimulation, then when you go into deep relaxation, you come out feeling really good. But if you're kind of in the moderate to mid-range of hyperstimulation, you can have a negative effect coming out, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't do it because the rest value in the deep relaxation teaches the nervous system to be calmer overall, and we have to manually train the nervous system to gear down for it to stay geared down. I don't know if you've read the section on homeostasis and how the body manages itself, but we have to train the body to be calmer in order for it to become calmer, and regular deep relaxation does that very thing. It also, as I mentioned earlier, it teaches us how to contain, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Are you a member of our website?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, okay, yeah. Just read about in chapter 14. We have a segment on hyperstimulation and how it affects the body, and it explains all the various chemistries and what has to happen for the body to get back to normal. That's a really good read. Although it's kind of technical, but it's really good to know the general concepts so you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, because I was having this fear of like becoming schizophrenic because of like if I was to do the deep relaxation and I kept going with it, or if I was to eat meat and I kept doing it, and I did both of those things, I was kind of afraid that like it could make the imbalance so large that I would start to have like psychotic episodes.
Oh yeah.
Or like start hearing voices or something. So
yeah.
that's what I'm still like kind of afraid of. Like not really, but because now that my hyperstimulation has gone down quite a bit, and like that fear has kind of pretty much almost fully gone away. But that's what kind of kept me back from like eating meat, even though I feel worse after, and doing the deep relaxation is like that fear that what if it gets really, really bad, or like it goes to a point of no return. So
yeah. That's a common fear. In fact, we've addressed it in the frequent questions section of our website about fear of developing schizophrenia through either stress or that. But it's just, it's not even shouldn't even be a concern. Schizophrenia affects so few people in the world, and they haven't traced it back to stress. They're really thinking there's more of a genetic component, and we think there's more of a behavioral component, depending on the background the person comes from. Certain backgrounds will set a person more to develop that, but again, it's not something you have to worry about from an anxious or a stress reduction or hyperstimulation perspective. We just never see it.
Yeah, I was thinking that because of my past and plus the hyperstimulation and stress and the sleep problems that I was at risk of something like that.
Yeah, no, I would discount it completely. I wouldn't even be concerned about it. Your earlier sleep problems is another classic symptom of anxiousness and hyperstimulation, right?
Yeah.
So if you deal with your anxiety, you should be just fine.
Okay, for sure. So you don't think I should get started on the Lamotrigine and the fish oil?
Oh my, I would stay away from anything because again, if the guy says he's trying to correct an imbalance, he has no idea what the imbalance is, first off. So why would you give you something to correct a balance? He doesn't even know what it is. It just doesn't make any sense. I would really focus on getting connected with the therapist, doing the recovery strategies we talk about, being patient because it takes time, and wait for those results to show up. Because when a person starts taking a psychotropic medication, we complicate the recovery process. That's the reality of it. It doesn't help, it complicates. Yeah.
I was thinking about if anything to start after I was done with the hyperstimulation and anxiety stuff.
Yeah, if you're going to do those things first, it wouldn't even bother. You probably won't even see the need for it. Fish oil, nothing wrong with taking omega-3s. Helps the body.
Yeah, I think though, like eating the omega-3s as well has that effect of like the same kind of effect as eating the meat though. That's why I haven't started that.
Yeah, I take chia seeds in the morning because it gives me the omegas that I need. It's a seed.
Oh yeah.
Throw it into my cereal. So lots of different ways to compensate that. Supplements are helpful too. So, that's not going to be too harmful as long as you're not overdosing yourself with it. But just taking moderate supplements shouldn't be a cause at all or a cause for concern at all.
Yeah, I kind of have like a fear of supplements though because of that adverse reaction that I had back in March, which kind of kicked off this whole journey.
Yeah.
So now that like I've completely stopped all supplements and I haven't touched them for like a long time.
Yeah.
So I guess start slowly on that.
Yeah, the thing too is, you can get a lot of your supplementation from the foods you eat. So, look at some ways you can supplement the things that you think you want to supplement through your diet.
Exactly. Yeah. It's been kind of difficult, but I've been trying to do that, especially without eating meat. It's kind of hard.
Yeah.
But
yeah. And that might change as your hyperstimulation comes down. Again, if you're not getting, like if a lot of your symptoms that you're finding through eating meat are the psychological, that means your body can probably tolerate it, but there's some other reason why that's happening. And I have a few ideas, but yeah, working on your anxiety and getting your stress down can be a game changer for you, especially at your age.
Yeah, the thing is, like, I got it down pretty good. I would say maybe to like a 3, but I was still having, like, when I was at an 8, I couldn't really tell. Just everything was triggering me.
Yeah.
But then I got it down pretty low, and then I cut down the meat, and then I got like much better after that. And then, so I guess maybe I have to get it down to like a 0, and then add the meat, and then see what happens. And I don't know.
Yeah, you want to get it down, and you want to keep it down. That's the thing. If you've had a reprieve, that's good. But there's other factors that can cause an uptick in symptoms, and it's usually behaviors where we go. And just from talking to you, I would suggest that's one of the triggers for you is the behavior side.
Okay. And then, the last thing is just sleep. Just for tonight, I want to have like this peace of mind. If I was to take away one thing from today is like I just want to get my sleep like down right. So I guess I have this kind of fear that happens, like whenever it's like around bedtime, of like thinking about like what if I get stressed and then I can't sleep, which is kind of a true fear because I've had so many nights where that has happened, and then the next day it's just like it's not, can't really do anything for the whole day. So there's like that. There's like kind of like the rational, or like there's like a kind of like a truth, I guess you could say, to like the fear. Like it kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah,
so
it does.
But it doesn't make sense at the same time because what's causing that is like fearing about that.
Yes, that's right.
So, so like I guess what would you recommend for that? Just resting is just telling myself that all I have to do is rest.
Yeah, just treat it like you would any anxiety symptom. They'll come down when my body's sufficiently rested. So my job is to rest, not to sleep. When my body's rested, it'll sleep. So just remove the whole thing. And the other part two of this is you want to learn to be okay with a reduction in sleep. Because often what happens, we feel really bad the next day because we're anxious about it. We're stressed about it. So it's our behavior that fuels the bad feeling. And so what I ended up doing was recognizing, all right, my job is just to rest, and whatever comes tomorrow is going to come tomorrow, and I'll just rest even then, because it's my cumulative effects of rest that's going to bring my sleep back on track. So I'm not going to stress. Just like a person would contain about their symptoms, we want to contain about not getting sleep. And if we focus on rest and containing, sleep comes back all by itself in time.
Right. Okay. Yeah, there was just that one thing stopping me. It was like the depression feeling after doing the deep relaxation.
Yeah.
But I guess that's not really a concern.
No, not a concern. No. And it's kind of normal to feel a little bit down after deeply relaxing until your body gets back to normal health. You'll feel good again. But in the short term, it might feel down. But it's just feeling down for a little while. As you notice, that passes too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. No cause for concern. Depression is not this great big monster a lot of people make it into. It's no different than anxiety in multiple levels. It can all be overcome with the proper help.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah. I think I need to take on that attitude like that you have of just being okay with everything.
Yep. Because that's the deal, right? We're anxious because we stress about stuff. Well, we're not anxious when we choose not to stress, and we can choose not to stress. We're in charge of our thinking. We just say, no, I'm not going to do that no more. The more relaxed we are, the more we don't stress about stuff, the easier it is for the body to get back on track.
Right, makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so is this conversation and the whole call going to be on the website?
It will in time, yeah. Probably in a couple of 3 weeks or so.
Okay.
Okay, sound all right?
Yeah, thanks a lot. I really appreciate your help. I know it's kind of held you back for some time, but I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure to help for sure, and I wish you all the best. Make sure you connect, okay? The therapist.
For sure.
It's the best way to get through this. It's so helpful.
Yeah, I definitely will. With making an appointment with Stacy this week.
Sounds good. You take care then.
All right, you too. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Ali. Bye-bye.